Jim Loeb, Interpress Service. Does Israel hold any special place in the movement or the imagination of neoconservatives? And I'd like to address that especially to you, Justin, and to Dr. Fukuyama, who had a kind of contretemps about this with Mr. Krauthammer, and then subsequently dropped it in his book, and I always wondered why.
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to give a brief answer and then a chance to the three of you to conclude, to answer and conclude. On Israel, yeah, Israel has a special place for many reasons that I mention in the book, especially for the 60s and 70s, the shock of 1967 and also of 1973. And it is true that it has been a very important let's say, element in the various ages of the movement. That said, it is, and here I would just follow what Gary Dorian, whom E.J. mentioned earlier, and who wrote two excellent books on this, said, that is, that basically Zionism is an important component, and the defense of Israel is an important component of neoconservatism, but it's certainly not the key to everything else. Meaning that it's not sort of the key that will explain the rest of the views, the ones that I mentioned, and you know, once again, the fact that Israel was a democracy did a lot to sort of change the views of many liberals, including many Jews, who had misgivings about the use of American power, and then came to realize that American power could be sort of used to defend democracies, and so there was a sort of conjunction here that operated, and so Israel, yes, remained something important, but not something that explains all the rest. And I let Frank answer on the question. And as for neoconservatives serving in the military, I will simply defer to the other panelists and to Bill maybe. Maybe we could take in the same order that we started. E.J., do you want to say a few concluding words?
Yeah, just on this question, I want to leave it to them, but I do think that if the Iraq War was in any way connected to the security of Israel, I think that one of the ironies of the war is that, if anything, it left Israel in a less secure position than it was in before, because it had the effect of strengthening Iran's position in the Middle East. We did seem to make Iraq safe for Iran, if not the world safe for democracy, and that's disconcerting. I think, by the way, support for Israel is a position that goes way beyond neoconservatism. It includes most American liberals, going back a long way, all the way back to Harry Truman. But there's a lot more to be said on that. I mean, I've spoken enough. I just want to say two things.
Well, just on this question of Israel, I think that, first of all, the problem is not, that I think that Israel is important to many neoconservatives. The problem is not divided loyalties or putting Israel's interest ahead of the United States. What I said in my argument with Krauthammer is the problem is that many neoconservatives have adopted the point of view, the strategic prism of many hardliners on the Israeli right, including their interpretation of Arab motives and behavior, this idea that the Arabs don't understand any principles of legitimacy, it's only force that they respect, this sort of thing, which then dictates a whole way of dealing with that region as a whole. And I just said, I think that that was a big mistake, and I think that that continues to be a problem. I mean, Krauthammer said that's anti-Semitism, but I just don't believe that that's really what was motivating me.
Bill?
Yeah, I don't want to get into the dispute between, I don't want to get into any of these disputes because they're somewhat distasteful, honestly, and I think the questions are not asked in a spirit of inquiry, but in a spirit of gotcha in this case. I mean, it seems to me hard to understand how we now, neoconservatives, have contempt for the Arabs and think they only believe in force, and are ludicrously utopian about the possibility of building an Arab democracy in Iraq. But maybe those can go together. Can they? Is that what you think?
Well, that's a big, yeah, I mean, that was a big
But we're
contradiction.
just totally,
because
well, okay, so we're...
that was a big contradiction, it seems to me, in the
well,
position.
maybe it's a big contradiction in the understanding of the position, and maybe one shouldn't impute views generally that in such a... But anyway, it's not, you know... The two questions were, I guess, about Israel. I mean, I don't know what the question really is. Yes, I'm pro-Israel. I think it is a very good thing that the State of Israel exists. I think it would be a calamity for the world if the State of Israel were destroyed. It doesn't mean I agree with one particular party in Israel. I just don't think it's empirically true what Frank says, that many neoconservatives were very much influenced by Israeli hardline views on the rest of the Middle East. I'm not even sure. I don't even know that many Israeli hardliners, I don't think, very well, but most of the ones I knew were very skeptical about the war in Iraq because they really wanted to totally focus on Iran. I also don't agree that the intervention in Iraq has weakened us vis-a-vis Iran, but that's another foreign policy debate, and we can debate Iran policy. We will debate Iran policy for the next couple of years. I would just make the obvious point that Kagan, Kraut, and I, and millions of hawks supported a bunch of interventions in Rwanda and Sudan and Bosnia that had nothing much to do with the interests of Israel one way or the other. And I think we were hawkish on China, as CJ said. We were just generally hawkish, I think. And it wasn't a matter of watching out for Israel's interests. But I also think the U.S., Israel is a strong ally, and the U.S. should, where possible, help Israel defend itself and not be cavalier about Israel's interests in a dangerous part of the world.